Hi, I'm Eric Benfeld with Virginia Cooperative Extension, Virginia Tech, and I'm for the soil, both for my children and future generations, viable agriculture, local waterways, and the protection of natural resources. Thank you for being part of this conversation and the For the Soil podcast.
Welcome to the inaugural episode of For the Soil, a Conversation. I'm your host, Jeff Ishii. Today we'll be talking about two topics. Number one, why soil health? And number two, why a podcast? Our special guest will be Mary Sketch. She is coordinator of the Virginia Soil Health Coalition, and Eric Benfeld, who is an extension specialist for community viability with Virginia Cooperative Extension. We'll also take a look at one of the four core principles of soil health, as well as the importance of taking a pledge to improve your own soil health. Let's go to the show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our program. Eric and Mary, how are you doing today?
Good. Thanks for having us on, Jeff.
Yes, thank you, Jeff. Really appreciate the time.
Absolutely. Excited about this brand new podcast, and we're excited about partnering with so many different entities, not only here in the Commonwealth of Virginia, but throughout the region. And it's all about improving soil health, which I think we all have to agree, if we eat, soil health is important to us because all of our food, basically all of our food, comes from the soil. And it is very important that we keep our soil healthy. So our topic of discussion today, Mary and Eric, is, well, it's really two questions. Why soil health and why a podcast? Mary, I want to start with you. And before you give your answer to why soil health, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. So as you mentioned, I'm the coordinator of the Virginia Soil Health Coalition, and come to this work really without a background directly in soil science, but really more broadly in natural resource conservation and rural community development, and finding that intersection, between the environment, economies, and social viability, that people, planet, and profit. So have worked in a lot of states across the country to find collaborative solutions to these natural resource issues, and really see soil health right at the center of this paradigm. Just a quick story, my first job out of college was actually in California doing post-wildfire forest restoration, and I remember driving down some of the gravel roads my first day there, and that had been decimated by fire, and watching the streams just run thick brown from erosion from the rains after the fire, and really realizing how connected everything was to soil health. And, this was the same water that was going down to provide water for millions of folks in the Bay Area of California. And so your human well-being, your community viability, landscape resilience was all tied to soil health. And so, seeing those connections really made me want to continue that work. And I'm glad to be doing it here in Virginia and across the region.
Oh, great to have you as part of our conversation today. And I'm going to ask you why soil health in just a moment. But first, let me ask Eric Benfeld to share a little bit about yourself. Eric, you and I have known each other for a number of years.
Yes, we have, Jeff, and it's been a pleasure to work with you through the years. And as you mentioned, I work as an extension specialist with Virginia Cooperative Extension, Virginia Tech, and focus on community viability and community food systems. Have actually studied soil science, specifically forest soils, and I also have a degree in history from James Madison University. So have always taken an interest in the importance of soil, and different books that you pick up, whether it's Dirt by David Montgomery or The Worst Hard Times by Timothy Egan, that sort of looks at the Depression and the journey of 6 families during the Dust Bowl. You just realize that soil is very critical to community, to land management, and food and farm production.
Very well. Eric Benfeld, once again with Virginia Cooperative Extension. And Mary, let me come back to you with that first initial question. Why are we talking about soil health? Why is that important?
Yeah, and going back to a little bit of what I was alluding to, that those intersections between well-being across all parts of our society and how soil is so interwoven into all of that. I think, it's vital for food production, but also water quality, the water we drink, for our economies. And I think that's what's so neat about it, is that it's a place for all of us to come together and be stewards for current and future generations. And I'm excited to, use For the Soil and this common umbrella to bring a lot of partners together that in a way that they can see their stewardship in it.
Eric, same question to you. Why soil health?
Well, as Mary mentioned, soils are critical. It's a vital living ecosystem and critical for air, water, food, and people. And then I certainly thinking about the increasing world population, the need for increased food supply. And then here in Virginia, we're doing all that we can to conserve farmland, but we do continue to see farmland lost to development. And as Mary mentioned, soil is so important to economic viability. And as you know, Jeff, Virginia has about $4 billion worth of agricultural receipts at the farm gate. And the majority of that food and agricultural production is dependent on soil. So that's critical. And then now we've been coming off a drought here in the Shenandoah Valley, and now we're seeing some of the effects of Hurricane Ida. So the importance of environmental resilience and resilience against both drought and heavy rainfall is really important moving forward.
That generates it reminds me of a story from, it was 25 years ago this summer that I was covering my very first story concerning agriculture in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and the story was a hurricane and soil erosion. And I was at a location in Elkton, Virginia, and the town was literally surrounded by water for several hours. We could not get out of Elkton, Virginia. There were mobile homes floating down the creek. It was that bad. And I recall distinctly standing next to the radio station van next to a cornfield, and the water that was running off of that cornfield was just red as it could be. It was very obvious we were losing a lot of soil due to that event. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll be continuing our visit with Eric Benfelt and Mary Sketch. And my next question will be, why a podcast? Welcome back, everyone. I'm Jeff Ishii, and this is For the Soil, a Conversation. Our special guests today are Mary Sketch with Virginia Soil Health Coalition and also Eric Benfelt with Virginia Cooperative Extension. We're talking about why soil health is important and also why a podcast. So, Mary, answer that question if you might. Why are we doing a podcast?
Yeah, it's a great question, Jeff. We talked about all of the ways that soil health, everyone, should care about soil health and be stewards of the soil. And so we're really trying to get everyone to see themselves in this movement and their role in protecting the landscape and building resilience. And so I think a podcast is the perfect way to share the many, many voices that are coming together, finding that common ground and their own identity within soil health. And it allows us to, have those conversations. As the title portrays, it's a conversation. We're hearing perspectives and stories, and I think it allows us to reach a diverse audience and share that knowledge and come together around this virtual table of soil health.
And Eric, I know in a personal conversation with you, you listen on a regular basis to a lot of different podcasts, and you made the decision with Virginia Cooperative Extension, hey, soil health, that should also be a podcast.
Yes, Jeff. For myself, you listen to different podcasts, and as Mary said, how can we have a broader conversation on the importance of soil health? And when I think about soil health, I also think that it's so analogous to human health. And, we all have desires and aspirations for a certain quality of life. We have duties and responsibilities as individuals and professionals. And I was reminded of this with a recent visit to the doctor of the tie to human health. Like you go to the doctor's office and they ask you for your records. Has any condition changed since the last time you visited? Are there family-related health conditions? Are there heart issues, any cancer, high cholesterol, blood sugar issues? And there's different attributes when we think about soils that we can affect, not only as farmers, but all of us as soil managers. We can affect the soil fertility, the structure, the depth of rooting, drainage and aeration, as well as minimizing pests and making a good environment so there aren't any pollutants or toxins. And again, as I mentioned, Jeff, I think resilience against stresses is going to continue to be an issue for all of us. So coming together and hearing the experiences, the expertise and insights of farmers and organizations that are working at protecting and conserving and building soil health, I think that's really critical at this time. And as Mary mentioned, having this virtual table where we can learn from one another and encourage peer-to-peer learning is really important moving forward for agriculture as well as society as a whole.
Very well said. That's a great correlation also between a doctor's office visit and also observing the health of your soils. Very important correlation you made there, Eric. And I want to share a quick story, if I might, in my own background. And what we're doing today is we're going to cover one of the 4 core principles of soil health in every episode of For the Soil, a Conversation. And today's principle is keeping the soil covered using cover crops, green manures, and things like that. And I'm reminded of 25 years ago when I made the decision to leave a career in the United States Navy to pursue a career in agricultural communications in Virginia. I was right there in Jacksonville, Florida, right off the base at the nearest library, and I was consuming every book I could read on agriculture and soil health and market gardening. My goal was to become a market farmer, market gardener. I wanted to sell at local farmers markets, and at that time in the late 1990s, the local foods movement was just getting started. But I recall as a sailor, I came across this phrase in a book that I had never heard before, and it involved cover crops and keeping your soil covered, and that was the phrase green manure. Now, for those of you who are familiar with soil qualities and with farming principles, green manure is just another phrase for a cover crop. It's something that you grow to improve, not necessarily to harvest the crop, but to improve the health of the soil. And I did not know what green manure was. I pictured it as literally just raw animal manure. And I learned a lot about keeping the soil covered during that period of my life. And that is one of the 4 core principles we wanted to share with you today. By the way, all of these core principles are shared at the website forthesoil.org. And that is the digit 4, thesoil.org. And right across the menu bar there at the top, you will also find a place that you can take a pledge to improve the soil health on your own farm or in your own backyard, in your own vegetable garden. We would challenge you to take that pledge. Once again, the web address is For the Soil. It's the digit 4, thesoil.org. Well, guys, we're coming up on our time limit for today, but how would you like to summarize the importance of soil health. Mary, we'll go with you first.
Thanks, Jeff. I think what Eric said really did it is, it is like human health, where every action you take can have cascading effects all around you. And I think we need to treat the soils like we treat our community and human health, because it has those impacts.
All right, Eric, same question.
For me, I think just creating a greater awareness of the ground beneath our feet, and particularly seeing it more as life-sustaining and so fundamental to ecosystems and to society as a whole, and what we can do to encourage stewardship of it for present and future generations is just so important.
Well, we are certainly excited about this brand new podcast, For the Soil, a Conversation, and our goal is to have conversations with farmers and soil scientists, with gardeners, master gardeners, and anyone who is involved in soil health here in the Commonwealth of Virginia and throughout the Mid-Atlantic region. We'll be talking with a lot of people over the next several weeks during this series of podcasts, For the Soil, a Conversation. Eric and Mary, thank you once again. If people wanted to learn more about the Soil Health Coalition, Mary, what would be your recommendation?
You can go to virginiasoilhealth.org. That's fully written out, virginiasoilhealth.org, and there's contact information on there, more information about our meetings, and you can sign up for our newsletter as well.
And Eric, if anyone wanted to learn more about Virginia Cooperative Extension, what would be your recommendation?
I would encourage them to visit their local extension office, either at the city or county level. And if they have other questions, they would also be welcome to visit their USDA service center and learning more about the resources that are available for protecting and building soil health.
Well, unfortunately, I see that our time is up. Thank you, Mary, and thank you, Eric, for being on this initial podcast for the Soil, a Conversation.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yes, you're welcome, Jeff.
For the Soil, a Conversation is made possible with funding support from the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation and the Agua Fund. Other partners include the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Natural Resources Conservation Service, Virginia Cooperative Extension, Virginia State University, the Virginia Department of Conservation and Recreation, and partners of the Virginia Soil Health Coalition. Views expressed on this podcast are those of each individual guest. To download a copy of this or any other episode, visit the website forthesoil.org. If you have a specific question about soil health, contact your local extension office, your local USDA service center, or a Soil and Water Conservation District office. Music used during today's program was obtained through the Free Music Archive and is attributed to Jason Shaw. All rights reserved. For the Soil, a Conversation is produced by On the Farm Radio in collaboration with Virginia Tech. I'm your host, Jeff Ishii.